welcome to the Jiu Jitsu Oracle's WNO27 preview, a show headlined by Kaynan Duarte against Nicky Rod. As we go through our preview of the event, looking at all the matches on the main card, if you hear anything you agree with or disagree with from us, that's me, Ross, and Callum, then please leave a comment. We enjoy reading all the comments and try and respond to as many as possible. And our last video, which dealt with the futures of Gordon Ryan and his coach John Danaher and whether they're going to continue in their current roles, provoked a lot of debate in our comment section. If you haven't seen it, feel free to jump in and add your thoughts. There seems to be a certain type of person attracted to that comment section. Callum, what was your name for the people that we've seen in there?
Gordon Glazers.
The Gordon Glazers. So if you're a Gordon Glazer, let us know why you think he's the GOAT. If you're otherwise, if your opinions are different, then let us know as well. But let's keep the focus on people who are actually competing right now. And this is a heavyweight matchup between the current ADCC champion and the current CJI champion. Hey, Callum, some matchmaking that makes absolute sense. Isn't that a wonderful thing to see?
Yeah, we were asking for this after the ADCC CGI weekend, and here it is. Probably would have been more impactful at the time before Nicky Rod had like 1 or 2 losses, but still glad we're seeing it.
Okay. So what are your initial thoughts on the match? How do you see it going?
I sway more towards Kaynan for this. They've faced up twice before, one at ADCC, maybe, when was the first one Nicky Rod did? Maybe 2019, something like that. Where Nicky Rod got silver, Kaynan won that division, and then shortly after that they had another sub-only match where Kaynan heel hooked him. Obviously that was a long time ago. They both came on a lot, but I still have to put Kaynan ahead. I think Kaynan can be quite inconsistent. He can be like absolutely unbeatable or can get caught here or there with things. Most of the time that's with leg locks, aside from the loss to Luke Griffith. Nicky, I just don't think he's shown as high a peak. I think physically, both very physical guys. Nicky Rod more so explosively, moving himself quickly through space, being hard to keep a hold of. Kaynan on the other end, more like strong static strength, keeping people down, keeping a hold of people. So I think that's going to be a really important thing in the match. Like if Kaynan can get a hold of Nicky Rod in a certain position or keep him down, I think that's going to be really tough for Nicky Rod to deal with. And then I think it's going to be hard for Kaynan to get a hold of Nicky Rod, whether he's going to like pull guard or try wrestle up. Just trying to get a hold of him and keep him down is going to be quite difficult. But yeah, I think Kaynan's got the more well-rounded skill set, and I do sway towards him.
The Jiu Jitsu Oracle available on YouTube to watch or listen to, and available on all the podcast platforms to listen to. But if you're watching on YouTube, you, like me, might see a GIF in the comment section of the Flow Grappling thing that's attracting your eye. So Callum, if you can scroll down those comments and get rid of whatever that is that's in the way.
I can't. That's as far as I can go.
Oh no. Oh wow.
I see it. It's Owen Jones posting a Ray Lewis meme who he seems to be quite fond of, so you can ignore it now.
Okay, well at least we know what it is. Who's got the better guard passing?
Kaynan.
Because
way more well-rounded. I think Nicky overly relies on the body lock pass, and when he struggles to get there, he struggles to get the pass against people with good guards. I think Kaynan's passing's more well-rounded. He's got body lock pass, and he can flatten you out in half guard. He's got good head quarter pass and good around the leg passing. He's passed in gi and no gi. I just think he's got way more tools in his arsenal, and probably passed better guards as well.
Okay. Who's got the better wrestling?
Probably Nicky Rod. I think Kaynan's is underrated, but I would go Nicky Rod.
Because
he he's got a wrestling background. I think his physicality, being more explosive, plays better into that, and I think he's shown his wrestling more in higher level competition, taking down better people.
Where do you think the match will typically take place? Will we see two guys wrestling a lot, or either of them on the bottom?
I think Kainan's pretty versatile with his being on top, being on bottom, or wrestling. So I could see him maybe wrestling for a little bit. His style of wrestling's like the typical Atos, and being very physical, wearing on the collar tie. So with his static strength, he might see that as a viable option to maybe wear Nicky Rod out. As well, he's got that super strong guillotine attack, so maybe pulling the head down, wearing on Nicky Rod, goading him into a bad shot would be a good strategy for him because his guillotine is one of his best attacks, but probably more than likely see him pull guard. That's what we saw against him at their match in ADCC, and he managed to hit a wrestle up from seated guard and use that to get on top to then pass Nicky's guard. So probably lean more towards that sort of route happening again, but I could see him standing with Nicky Rod as well.
Could Nicky sit and wrestle up?
Yeah, I think the way he does it is more aggressive than typical. I don't think he really like pulls all the way to sit and then sits there. He more comes down to that like 1 knee, 2 knee position. He'll maybe sit to his butt for a second, but it's very aggressive and proactive. He's not really looking to like sit around for too long on his butt. He will be changing level to shoot or to come back up.
Okay. And you lean towards Kaynan overall?
Yeah, I think so.
And then where does that leave Nicky Rod then if he comes off the back of a loss against Victor Hugo and a loss against Kaynan Duarte?
Well, the thing with him winning CJI, I do think he got quite an easy run in comparison to like that whole weekend, all of those guys that are in the like upper echelon. Like he's in that debate for sure, but obviously Kaynan, Felipe, Gordon, Merigali were all doing ADCC. We thought Victor Hugo was going to be the guy we'd match up against in the finals. Victor Hugo got put out first round. He didn't manage to face any of the two really high level wrestlers, which people thought would be difficult matches for him. So, like, obviously still a massive achievement and not trying to take anything away from him, but at the same time, he did get quite an easy run through that CGI event. So, I don't know. I think he's still in the debate when we're talking about like the best heavyweights in the world, but I wouldn't put him in the upper echelon, probably A tier as opposed to S tier.
And if Kaynan wins, does that make him number one? Or do we then need to see Kaynan against someone else to cement that status?
I think until, I've spoken about this many times, until we get some promotion just like bringing all these guys together on one night and doing some sort of round robin, but even then, like then next week, one of them that lost could beat the other one. It's like so up for debate. I think Gordon was the clear one, but obviously he's looking like he's going to be retired now, as we spoke about on the last video. So like Merigali beat Kaynan, then Merigali got beaten at ADCC and Kaynan got double gold. Like Victor Hugo was doing a different thing. I think Victor Hugo would be a tough matchup for Kaynan just because of the size difference. I think Victor in their last gi matches maybe beat him, so that would be a super difficult matchup. But I think Kaynan would be the guy for just now. I think he is the guy for just now just because he had such a dominant performance at ADCC. And then to go and beat the guy that won the other big event that weekend would definitely put him in first place for now, but could easily see Victor Hugo then a couple months from now beating him. It's very much up in the air. There needs to be some sort of plan so we know who the guy is because we don't right now.
Well, there might be a plan formulating because if you click this slide over to the next match, we have the aforementioned Victor Hugo going up against Luke Griffith. So if Victor was to win this match, you'd imagine smart matchmaking. Well, mind you, we're assuming that Kaynan beats Nicky Rod. So if like Nicky Rod wins and Victor Hugo wins, then we're back to square one with Nicky Rod against Victor Hugo, and the cycle just keeps going on and on and on. But maybe if Kaynan won and Victor Hugo won, then we'd have a match for like a sort of definitive number one in Gordon's absence at that point. But let's look at this match in of itself. Victor Hugo against Luke Griffith. How do you see this one going?
Definitely sway towards Victor Hugo. I think Luke like Danaher spoke about in his recent Flow Grappling interview, Luke's shown the ability and like the glimmer of being at the very peak. Best example of that was him beating Kaynan, especially beating Kaynan not with a leg lock, because that seems to be issue with him where he can have like a lapse of concentration and get leg locked, but he like took his back from standing, I believe, and rear naked choked him. So more of like a positionally dominant way to win that match. So he's shown the ability to do that and beat the best guys in the world, but then I think shortly after that he lost to Wagner Hocha, who's in his 40s and like multiple kilos lighter than him. So he's still quite inconsistent. If the Luke Griffith that beat Kaynan shows up, he could definitely beat Victor Hugo, but I think Victor's a lot more consistent with his performances. Obviously, he lost first round at CJI. His opponent was really good in that area of the game, however. But aside from that, I think he's been pretty consistent with his no-gi performances, whereas Luke hasn't. I think Luke's huge, but Victor is like really, really big for that weight division. He's like that Buchecha kind of size, like next level to like the Felipes and the Kaynan. So that's going to go in his favor. I think Victor's guard and flexibility at that size is like really awkward for a lot of these guys to deal with. And I don't think Luke has shown the kind of passing to be able to deal with that kind of guard at that weight.
Shout out Lucas Kennard, because we've mentioned him without mentioning him.
Yeah.
He's the one who heel hooked Victor Hugo at CJI. Now, an interesting thing about this, based on the interview that John Danaher gave, was when he was talking about Luke Griffith's size, and maybe Luke was coming down in weight. But then, if you were to do that, I understand why Luke might do that, based on as well like his ADCC match against Pena, where he seemed to have the better of the early stages, but then sort of found the later stages tougher going. So maybe he's thinking that's to do with size and cardio, and if you can have more cardio, that'd be better for him. But I don't think this is the match you want to have if you're losing weight, because Victor Hugo's an absolute unit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think I'd heard that he was floating around 250 pounds before, and obviously he's going to be shooting for under 99 kilos because that's the place he's representing at CGI. So that's about 30 pounds. So where he is in that transition, I don't really know. He might bump himself up a little bit with this and then continue the cut through the summer towards CGI. But yeah, I think the weight would favour him in this match against someone of Victor's size. But we'll see what kind of size he shows up in when they square off.
Yeah, but Victor's good for his weight as well. It's not like he is like a bigger guy and has gas tank vulnerability, you know, so you're thinking, oh, if I can just out cardio him, like I never really see Victor Hugo in that situation where he's running out of steam. So yeah, I think it's tough from that point of view. I think like maybe like the first match that we talked about, like all around, there's one guy better than the other. It's not to say can't see Luke get into a position where he can score and win. But I think it's a big ask. I see a lot more strengths on Victor Hugo's side than I do on Luke Griffith's side. And maybe it was like looking that way in kind of the first match as well. Can definitely see Nicky Rod winning, but I think Kaynan's got more strengths than Nicky does.
Yeah.
Okay, an agreement. Let's move on, Callum. Next match up, we have Liz Clay against Helena Crevar. How do you see this one going?
I think they had a match in the past, as Danaher spoke about again in that Flow interview. I don't remember seeing that match, to be honest, but
I do.
I think, well, did Elizabeth win by submission or?
Yes, in 2022 at the West Coast Trials.
Right, okay.
So it is a few years ago as well, and Helena is young and was much younger then. So I think Helena's made progress since then. But just to jump in there, the one thing I think with that is that Liz Clay won't be shy, as a lot of Helena's opponents are, about entering the legs and playing around there. And I think that could have a positive effect on the match.
How did Elizabeth submit her last time?
I think it was a knee bar.
Right, okay. I would still sway towards Elizabeth. Obviously, when you've got someone that young having a rematch like a few years later, it's going to be massive jumps in their physicality and their technical ability. But I still think like the eye test looking at Elizabeth, she definitely looks like one of the more physical women's athletes, like stronger, especially they're at like a kind of medium weight class for the women. I'm not comparing her to like Gabby Garcia's physicality or anything like that, but for her kind of size, she looks eye test wise very physical. So I think she's still going to have a big edge. Obviously, Helena will have progressed a lot in that area, but she's still only like what 17 or something. So you can't really compare that to someone in their mid-20s athletically. Technique wise, I think Clay has still got the bigger scalps as far as leg lock victories. Like she had that recent one against Fionn Davies. That alone, I think, is bigger than anyone Helena's ever submitted. Helena's obviously been rounding out her game with like wrestling and passing, as all the guys at Danaher's have been. But I think I would still sway towards Elizabeth. Could even still leg lock Helena, and just overall the physicality and overall game, I sway slightly towards her. But I wouldn't be surprised if Helena came away with the win, just given the strides in her physicality and her game since the last time they competed.
Yeah, so Helena's a great finisher. If she gets her chance, she can definitely win. I think, like you said, the physicality of Liz is interesting because it seems against a lot of the people Helena goes up against, she has a big edge in physicality and leg lock ability. And I think Liz is much better in both of those facets of the game. So it's a much bigger test for Helena from that point of view. It's also interesting to see Helena go up against like someone very, very experienced, because a lot of time I see her compete, it's against younger athletes.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking back, like she lost ADCC to Ana Carolina Vieira, who's a veteran of the game. You know, it's like, can Liz bring that experience into the match and cause Helena problems? I would like to see Helena in other areas of the game. I think she has been working wrestling and passing, and we do see flashes of it sometimes in our matches, but then it feels, maybe I'm misremembering, but it feels like she then like often reverts to type and goes into the legs. So I don't like, if she's in a leg lock battle with Liz Clay, is that the way to win this match? I mean, perhaps, but it carries a risk because Liz is very good in the legs. So maybe Helena taking it elsewhere and us getting to see a bit more of her game would be good. But yeah, I'm with you. I would give Liz a slight edge, but I think it's very close. Bit of a toss-up, this one.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, next match should be an absolute banger. Yep. Agree?
Agreed.
Okay. So I think this was originally scheduled at a previous event, but Andrew's had injuries since his amazing CJI performance, where he didn't win, but he put on match of the year against Cade Rutolo. So great to see him back competing. And then we have Fabyury Khrystyan, who's impressed since he's arrived at the elite level, another very young grappler. But what do you think about this match, other than it's just going to be, like, I think, an absolute tear-up?
Yeah, I think I really like Fabyury, I really like his style, and he's obviously been training at AOJ, so that might have caused some leaps in his game. But from what I've seen for both of them, I think he's somewhat out of his depth, just given the Andrew Tackett that we saw at CGI was like unbelievable. And just that style, like super aggressive, super physical, really good at wrestling, really good powerful shot from the outside, and then just like rabid dog guard passing on the outside. So, you know, I could see Fabyury maybe throwing up some things like similar to how Owen O'Flanagan like threw up a couple attacks to Andrew's upper body when he was doing his outside passing, but I'm struggling to see how Fabyury wins this match if Andrew's in good health and he shows up like he showed up at CGI. Which, to be fair, if he's in good health, he shows up pretty consistently. He doesn't seem to have many like mental blocks or like bad days. If he's fit, you know what you're typically getting with Andrew.
Yeah, I think all round, Andrew is one of the best in the world. I mean, the fact that he ran Cade so close in their match. I mean, you could even argue Andrew might have edged it, but like I think Cade like pulled it out right at the end. But it was a very close match. Whereas Fabyury's trying to get himself up to this level.
Yeah, like I don't think Fabyury's even had the chance to compete against much guys on the level of like Nicky Ryan and Ono Flanagan, let alone completely run through like Andrew did at CGI. So that's kind of what I'm basing it off of.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, Andrew's like ahead of those guys. You know, if we were to do a tier list, you've maybe got Nicky Ryan and Ono Flanagan at a certain tier. I definitely put Andrew ahead of them. So, yeah, I don't like. I love watching Andrew. I don't really see where you can take him that like he's going to have a problem with.
Yeah.
So big ask for Fabyury, but I do think like the good thing is Fabyury will make it an exciting match. So, I heavily favour Andrew in this one, but I'm glad that it's got the potential of being exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we should have another exciting match on the card. Owen Jones against Julian Espinosa.
Yeah.
Are you leaning either way?
I lean towards Owen, just because he's done more. Like, obviously, Espinosa didn't qualify for last ADCC, Owen did, and submitted to the best guys in the division. Lost to Pato, and then didn't get to see him in the bronze medal match because he got injured against Pato, but still really interesting. I still think Espinosa can make it a really difficult match for Owen. Both these guys are like lightning quick with their reactions and just like physical movement speed. Both of them have got good wrestling game, especially now with Owen. He seems to have developed that a lot. Both of them really good on the legs. Saw Owen Flanagan leg lock Julian quite easily, but there was obviously a massive size discrepancy there. But typically when I see Julian compete against guys his size, he's pretty snappy at getting himself out of bother with the legs, as well as attacking his own leg entanglements and attacking the back off of there. It's quite similar games, like both physically and technically in quite a lot of senses. I just think Owen's probably quite a bit more developed with the leg attacks and has a lot better scalps on his resume. And we'll be interested to see whether he elects to play his typical competition game or whether he's going to stand up a little bit with Julian, given the fact that he's put a lot of time into that being over in America. But I think Owen's got the better resume, got the better scalps, probably got the slightly better developed game, and just his trajectory seems to be on the up. So I think this is going to be really exciting and could see it going either way, but I still quite heavily favour Owen in the match.
I think Owen, even if he has been working his wrestling and stuff like that, I think he should just take it to where he's strong. I think if he's learned anything from that match against Pato at the ADCC, it's like base your game plan around like what you're strong at and what your opponent's weak at. Because it sounds like he changed it up at the last minute and ended up in on the legs. So like I think I would say Julian has an edge wrestling wise. So I wouldn't take it there if I was him. I think Owen's got an edge in finishing, like whether it's on the legs or on the arms, etc. He's a very good submission artist.
Yeah.
So you should probably focus on that. And I think it's an interesting match because I think if Owen is where he thinks he is, I'm sure, and where he wants to be, like this is a match he should be winning.
100%, yeah.
So if Julian can win or cause him a lot of problems, that's going to be like a step back for Owen, who I think wants to be pushing on towards he does, wants to be at the top end of the sport, wants to be number one, etc. So like I think this is a sort of match that if he is in that place, he should be winning.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Owen, he seems to like really rise to the occasion. Like in the lead up to ADCC, he had I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a coloured belt from Holland. He's really good, but he's like, you didn't qualify for ADCC through ADCC trials. I don't even think he medalled, and it was quite a close match between them. I think that was maybe on Polaris. And then you had that match on Who's Number One against the guy from Danaher's gym that got second. And again, it was somewhat of a close match. And then when it came time for ADCC, He just like ran through Gerbeg and Gabriel getting like super highlighty submissions, and then even at trials as well, like he really rose to the occasion against Ash. So I don't know if that's something to do with Owen's psychology. Maybe if he sees this as like a big match, he's going to really rise to it and like take him out quickly. If not, could potentially be a closer match, like I spoke about in the lead up to ADCC.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to look at it as being a huge match for Owen. This is a massive platform, you know, one of the top promotions. You win this, you set yourself up. Look at the other names that are on this card. You want to stay in the mix with these sorts of guys. So, yeah, and I think you're right. It's a good observation. He does seem to rise to the occasion. There's a bit you know, I'm the man about him. Like he wants the spotlight on him. He wants to be winning and speaking to the camera afterwards, letting us all know about how he's won, etc., which is great. So yeah, I think like if Owen treats it as the big stage and we get the best Owen Jones, and that's going to be good for us watching. So yeah, I do hope that happens. One more on the main card. One of the most underrated grapplers of all time, Xande Ribeiro, right? So glad to see him back. I think it's his first match in about 3 or 4 years. I remember he was at the ADCC in 2022 and he lost to Ono Flanagan.
But doing a little bit of like Masters Worlds and stuff, maybe.
Oh, he might have, but like I think, yeah, okay, like on this, I don't know, but on this stage, I think like we've not really seen, and he is someone who's come through generations of facing the absolute best. And when you look at the names who he's got on his resume, and when you look at the guys he's beaten, and he's beaten Roger in competition, just unbelievable. 5-time IBJJF world champ. I mean, twice he's done double gold. He's won the ADCC.
Beaten Roger as well, because like when I've looked at Roger's resume in the past, like it seems to stand out that Xande's beaten him by far the most amount of times.
I would think off the top of my head, it's probably at the elite level, you know, like once got up to black belt, I'd say probably Xande is that guy. Like in Xande's competition, like the only guy that really seemed to give him like a lot of trouble was, well, not a lot, like obviously guys traded victories and stuff like that, but like Rodolfo Vieira was a bit of a kryptonite for Xande, I think. But outside of that, you know, you look at the guys like Galvao and Braulio, it's just like back in the, like a few years ago, you know, maybe a generation ago or 2 generations ago, like the standard of heavyweight grappling was so high, and Xande was able to pick up more than his fair share of titles in that. And the fact that like he's still on the scene's absolutely amazing. And I think like when a lot of names get brought up, I'm not saying he is the GOAT, but I'm just saying in the GOAT conversation, you know, when we speak about these legends of the past, like Marcelo and Roger, like guys like Xande don't always get a mention. I think he should at least get a mention when we're chatting about all those guys, because he is an all-time great in the sport.
Yeah.
And yeah, what do you think we might see in this match? So I like Xande, like on bottom, love his close guard. On top, love his passing. I'd imagine Boogeyman's going to try and enter the legs. So we might see a bit more passing from Xande. But how do you see this match going?
I see this match very reminiscent of Marcelo versus Imanari. That being that like Boogie and Imanari are super dangerous and they've got their area of the game that you definitely want to try avoid. That being said, like they're just not on the same level whatsoever, just to be brutally honest. And it's not to say that Boogie can't win and can't get him into his A game. Like he's got amazing darts, he's good on the legs, he's got a good rubber guard. So if Xande gets caught there, he could get submitted. I'm not saying he can't. And it was probably the same with Imanari getting into Marcelo's legs. But just like overall, they're not on the same level. So I think if Xande can keep it in his game, I don't see it being overly competitive of a match. Both a little bit older, obviously both past their prime, and this makes sense for Xande. Obviously, it would not make sense to give him someone in his prime because he retired from that kind of competition when he stopped doing the ADCC. So it makes sense in the match, but I just see overall grappling wise, like they're not on the same level and heavily favor Xande. But like I said, not to say that Boogie is completely out of the discussion. probably like a 5 to 10% chance if he can get it into certain areas of the game, he can catch Xande.
Okay, and well done, Flow Grappling. We have an interesting card with lots of different types of matches that are all interesting and relevant. We have a couple of big heavyweight matches at the top that are going to lead us towards knowing a bit more about who's the #1 heavyweight. We have an exciting women's match. We have a couple of bangers with the lighter weights, and then we have a masters match on the card as well. I think overall it's a really good card, and there's a lot of storylines there and a lot of potential for exciting grappling. So it'll be a good show. It's on Friday evening in the US. So Callum, by the time we get to see it, it's at least going to be Saturday, if not later than that, because we've got a busy weekend. But we will be back soon enough with our thoughts on the show. Hopefully you enjoy it. Give us a like, subscribe, and jump into the comments section if you can.